The morning fog hung low over the water as Dae Kim's small wooden boat cut through the gentle waves. The old fisherman's hands, rough from decades at sea, guided the boat with the ease of someone who knew these waters better than the lines on his own palm. At 58, Dae was the last true seafolk in his village of Haenim on the southern coast of Korea. While giant fishing ships with their loud engines and fancy computers searched the seas, Dae relied on what his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather had taught him. The sea spoke to those who knew how to listen, and Dae had been listening his whole life. "The water feels different today," he said to himself, dipping his hand into the cold ocean. Most people would laugh at such a statement, but Dae could feel tiny changes in the water's flow, temperature, and even its smell that told him where to find fish, when storms would come, and which areas to avoid. Today, something felt wrong. The currents moved in ways he had never felt before. The fish weren't in their usual spots. Even the seabirds circled in strange patterns. Dae frowned and turned his boat away from his planned fishing spot. He would try the eastern bay instead, where the water moved against the rocks in a way that often trapped schools of mackerel. His village needed the fish. The big companies with their massive ships had been taking more and more, leaving little for small fishermen like him. The sun was halfway up the sky when Dae returned to the harbor, his boat heavy with fish. Other fishermen looked on in surprise. Most had returned with almost empty nets. Old Dae did it again, one young man said to another as they helped him unload. "We checked that same area yesterday. Nothing there." "The fish weren't there yesterday," Dae said simply. They arrived this morning with the changing tide. The young men exchanged looks. They respected Dae, but many thought his ways were old and strange. Only a few understood that his success wasn't luck. It was the deep knowledge that came from a lifetime of watching and feeling the ocean's moods. "Dad, you're back early." "Han." Kim smiled as she walked down to the harbor. At 32, she was tall and strong with the same sharp eyes as her father. Unlike Dae, who had only finished basic school, Han had gone to university and become a marine biologist. "The ocean is restless today," Dae replied, handing her a large fish. "For your dinner." Han took the fish but frowned at her father's words. Restless how? This was their special connection. While other scientists often dismissed traditional knowledge as simple folklore, Han knew better. Her father's understanding of the sea had helped her research many times. What he felt in his bones she could often explain with science. What her instruments detected, he could often feel before any machine noticed. "The currents are wrong," Dae said as they walked up from the harbor toward their homes. "And did you see the jellyfish bloom near the South Rocks? They're 2 months early." Han nodded. "We've been tracking unusual patterns all along the coast. The research center thinks it's climate change affecting the water temperature." Dae shook his head. "No, daughter. This is different. The sea isn't just changing. It feels like—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Like it's responding to something." "Responding? To what?" "I don't know. But when a tiger walks through a forest, all the small animals change their behavior. The birds call warnings. The deer run. The forest itself seems to hold its breath." Dae looked out at the endless blue horizon. That's how the ocean feels now. That night Dae couldn't sleep. He stepped outside his small house and looked up at the stars. The night was clear and beautiful, but the sound of the waves seemed wrong to his ears. Too rhythmic, too regular. The ocean never beat so steadily against the shore unless something was forcing it to. His phone rang, an unusual event at midnight. "Dad?" Han's voice was filled with excitement. "Are you watching the news? You know I don't watch much TV. Turn it on. Channel 9. Dae went inside and turned on his small television. The news showed people gathered at beaches around the world, pointing at the sky. The camera tilted up to show strange lights moving above the ocean. "They're saying it might be meteors," Han said over the phone. "But the pattern is too regular. Some of my colleagues think it could be—" She hesitated. "Could be what?" "Visitors. From somewhere else." Day watched silently as the lights on the screen descended toward the ocean's surface in perfect formation. Then, instead of crashing into the water as meteors would, they slipped beneath the waves without a splash. "That's what the ocean was trying to tell me," he whispered. 3 days later, the world changed forever. Government officials arrived in every coastal town, including Hainem. They gathered people in the community center where a large screen showed the same message being broadcast globally. "Citizens of Earth," a serious-looking woman in a suit said, "we confirm that we have made contact with an intelligent species from beyond our solar system. They call themselves the Nayari and have expressed peaceful intentions. They are an aquatic species and have particular interest in Earth's oceans, which they say are unique in their experience." Murmurs filled the room. Dai sat silently, watching. The Nayari have advanced technology they are willing to share. In return, they've requested permission to study our oceans. International authorities have granted this request under careful monitoring. Some of you in coastal regions may notice increased activity in your waters. Please continue normal activities and report any concerns to local officials. As people left the meeting full of excited talk about aliens and new technology, Dai remained, seated, a deep frown on his face. "You don't look happy about alien visitors, Dad," Han said, sitting beside him. "When a foreign fishing fleet enters our waters, they always say they're just studying or passing through," Dai replied. "But they never leave without taking something." "These aren't fishermen, Dad. They're scientists from another world." "Perhaps. But the ocean is afraid, Han. I've never felt it like this before." Han put her hand on her father's weathered one. "The research center has been invited to join a scientific exchange with the Nayari. I'm going to be part of the team." Day looked at his daughter, worry in his eyes. "Then you'll see for yourself," he said. "But remember what I taught you. The sea never lies. Listen to it, not just to what these visitors say." That night, Day walked alone along the beach, watching strange lights move beneath the waves far offshore. The tide came in at the wrong time and dead fish washed up on the sand. Fish with no marks on them, as if they had simply stopped swimming. The ocean was trying to warn them, and Dae Kim was listening. The research center where Han worked was usually quiet, with only the gentle hum of computers and the occasional splash from the testing tanks. Today, it buzzed with excitement. Scientists rushed from room to room carrying samples and checking equipment. Today they would meet the Nayari up close for the first time. "I can't believe we're going to work with aliens," said Ji Han's co-worker as they prepared their lab. "Real aliens who crossed space to get here." Han nodded, but felt a strange worry in her stomach. Her father's words kept coming back to her. The ocean is afraid. As a scientist, she knew oceans couldn't feel fear, but as a fisherman's daughter, she wasn't so sure. A government car arrived at the center precisely at noon. From it stepped 3 humans in dark suits, and between them, something that made everyone gasp. The Nayari stood about as tall as a human, but was clearly not from Earth. Its skin shimmered with blue-green scales that seemed to change color with each movement. Where a human would have hair, it had what looked like soft tentacles that moved gently as if floating in invisible water. Its large, dark eyes had pupils shaped like diamonds. "I am Tae," the creature said in perfect Korean, though its mouth barely moved. "Lead researcher of the Nayari Earth expedition." The head of the research center stepped forward with a shaky hand. "Welcome to our humble facility. We are honored to work with you." Tae's head tilted slightly. "Yes, we hope your scientists will be useful in helping us understand certain unique aspects of your oceans." Han noticed how Tae said, "your oceans," as if they belonged to humans alone. But oceans belong to all Earth's creatures, didn't they? Over the next week, Han learned many things about the Nayari. They came from a water world called Nea, 16 light-years from Earth. Their technology was far beyond human understanding. They had ships that could travel between stars and dive deeper into oceans than any human vessel. They could speak any human language after hearing it just once. But she also learned things that worried her. During a meeting about ocean currents, she showed Tae the data she had collected from boats and satellites. "This is how we track the major ocean patterns," she explained, pointing to her screens. Tay made a sound like bubbles rising through water, their version of laughter. How primitive. You watch the ocean from above or dip little machines into it here and there. You barely touch the surface of understanding. One of the other scientists spoke up. We've been studying Earth's oceans for centuries. And yet you, no less than a Nayari child, Tay replied. Your oceans hide secrets you cannot imagine. That is why we are here. Han thought of her father again. He didn't use fancy equipment, yet he understood things about the sea that even her instruments couldn't detect. There are many ways to know the ocean, she said quietly. Tay's diamond eyes turned to her. Yes, and yours is the least effective. Meanwhile, Dai faced his own problems. Each day the fishing became worse. Places that had always been full of fish were now empty. Strange dead zones appeared where nothing lived, not even the smallest plants. The water felt wrong in ways he couldn't explain to the other fishermen. It's those aliens, said Old Doe, who had fished alongside Day for 30 years. Ever since they came, the sea has changed. The officials say the Nayari are just studying, another fisherman argued. They promised not to interfere. Day said, nothing but turned his boat toward a new area he had never fished before. His instincts told him to try the deep channel beyond the usual fishing grounds. When he returned to the harbor, his boat was half full, not a great catch but better than the empty nets of the others. The next day, 5 more boats followed him to the deep channel. All returned empty. How is this possible? Asked a young fisherman named Yu. We went exactly where you did. The fish were there yesterday, Day said simply. Today they are gone. That night, Day saw strange lights moving under the water near the deep channel. The next day, that area too was empty of all life. Han's phone rang late one evening as she was reviewing data in her apartment. Dad? Is everything okay? No. Day's voice was tight with worry. Nothing is okay. The fish are vanishing, dead zones are spreading, and no one will listen, Han sighed. I know, we're seeing strange readings too, but the Nayari say it's normal fluctuation. Normal? Day almost shouted. There is nothing normal about this. Today I found a whole reef dead. Yesterday it was alive. Han felt torn. As a scientist, she needed facts and measurements, but her father's knowledge was rarely wrong. I'll look into it, she promised. I have access to the Nayari research area now. Maybe I can find something. The next day, Han paid special attention to what the Nayari actually did, not just what they said. She noticed how they collected strange samples from the ocean, things they didn't share with the human scientists. She saw how they always returned to their ship with sealed containers, and most troubling, she noticed how areas they said they would just observe always showed massive changes on the marine life scanners afterward. During lunch, she sat next to a younger Nayari named Sun, who seemed friendlier than the others. Sun, I've noticed some concerning changes in our coastal ecosystems, Han said carefully. Fish populations dropping, coral dying suddenly. Do you think your research might be affecting these areas? Sun's skin rippled, changing from blue-green to a deeper purple. You humans are so attached to your tiny corner of this planet. The oceans are vast and changing all the time. But these changes are happening exactly where your teams have been working. Sun's diamond eyes narrowed. The research director Tay is conducting requires energy extraction from certain areas. Its negligible impact on a planetary scale. Energy extraction? That wasn't in any of the research plans shared with us. Sun seemed to realize he had said too much. It's simply advanced science you wouldn't understand. Your primitive monitoring equipment misreads normal changes as damage. Later that day, Han used her security badge to enter a lab area normally restricted to human scientists. What she saw made her blood run cold. Maps of Earth's oceans covered the walls, but not ordinary maps. These showed strange markings over deep ocean trenches, mid-ocean ridges, and thermal vents, places humans rarely visited. On one screen, she saw footage of a Nayari device on the ocean floor. It pulsed with strange energy, and as it did, all sea life around it simply stopped moving and floated away, dead. What are you doing in here? Came Tay's voice from behind her. Han turned, heart pounding. You're not just studying our oceans. You're mining them somehow. You're killing everything in these areas. Tay moved closer, suddenly seeming much taller. We are taking what we need from a resource you barely use or understand. Your people only scratch the surface while treasures lie below. These treasures are part of Earth's ecosystem. You're destroying habitats, killing species. Species that are insignificant on a cosmic scale, Tay interrupted. The compounds we extract exist nowhere else in our explored galaxy. They are too valuable to leave in the hands of primitive land dwellers who don't even know they exist. Han backed toward the door. I'm going to report this. The agreement was for research only. Tay made that bubbling laugh sound again. Report to whom? Your leaders already know. The technology we've promised them is too valuable to pass up. A few dead fish seem a small price to them. As Han turned to leave, 2 Nayari guards blocked her path. I think, Tai said calmly, you should join our research team on our main vessel. We could use someone who understands local marine behavior and who won't be making alarming reports to the public. Han realized with horror that she wasn't being invited. She was being detained. 3 days had passed since Day last heard from Han. This was not like her. Even at her busiest, she always called or sent a message. Something was wrong. Day tried calling the research center again. I'm sorry, Mr. Kim, said the same polite voice he had heard twice before. Dr. Kim has joined the Nayari on their main research vessel for a special project. She'll be unavailable for several weeks. She would have told me, Day insisted. She would never leave without saying goodbye. I understand your concern, sir, but this opportunity came suddenly. Many scientists would give anything for this chance. The call ended, and Day sat in his small kitchen staring at his phone. The story made no sense. Han had been worried about the Nayari's activities. Why would she suddenly join them? Day walked to his window and looked out at the sea. The morning was clear, but the water's color was wrong. Too dark in some places, too light in others. The patterns of waves hitting the shore were unnatural. They have her, he whispered to the empty room. And no one will believe me. Han sat in a small room with curved walls made of a strange, slick material that wasn't quite metal or plastic. There was a bed, a table that grew from the floor, and a window that showed only the dark ocean outside. She had been here for 3 days on what she now knew was a massive Nayari ship sitting on the ocean floor. The door slid open and Sun entered with a tray of food. You should eat, he said, placing the tray on the table. Human bodies are inefficient and need constant refueling. Han looked at the food. Normal, human food at least. Why am I being kept here? Sun's tentacles moved in what she had learned was a sign of discomfort. You saw restricted operations. Director Tay believes you would cause problems. You mean I'd tell people you're destroying our oceans? We are not destroying, Sun corrected. We are harvesting. The elements we extract are crucial for our civilization. They power our ships, our cities, our lives. And killing our marine life is just a side effect you don't care about. Sun moved closer to the window. Your oceans are unusual. On most water worlds we've visited, life is simple and sparse. Earth's oceans teem with complexity. It's unfortunate that our extraction affects them, but the needs of our world outweigh concerns for fish and plants. Han stood up and faced him. These aren't just fish and plants. They're entire ecosystems that have evolved over millions of years. They're the livelihood of coastal communities worldwide. They're the reason Earth is special. Sun's skin rippled, changing colors slightly. The Nayari have explored 53 ocean worlds. We have harvested from 28. Never has any species challenged our right to the waters. Because you've never met humans before, Han said quietly. Day knew he needed help, but the police wouldn't believe him. Government officials would dismiss him as a crazy old fisherman. He needed people who would understand. People who knew the sea as he did. He called Du First, his oldest fishing friend. The sea is sick and these aliens are behind it, Day explained. And now they have my daughter. To his relief, Doe didn't laugh or argue. I believe you. The water feels wrong. Fish act strange. Even seabirds fly different patterns now. I need to find their ships, Day said. They must have bases underwater where they're doing their work. If I can prove what they're doing, you'll need more eyes than just ours, Du said. I know fishermen in other villages who see things the way we do. Over the next 2 days, Day spoke with 12 other traditional fishermen along the coast. All had noticed the strange changes in the ocean. All felt the wrongness that scientists couldn't measure with their machines. They gathered in Day's home, men and women who had spent their lives on the water. Some were young, some even older than Day. All had learned fishing from parents and grandparents who had learned from their parents before them. The aliens think we don't understand our own oceans, Day told them. They think because we don't have fancy machines, we are blind to what happens beneath the waves. They're the blind ones, said Me, an old woman who had fished the southern islands for 60 years. They don't know how to read the patterns. Day spread a hand-drawn map on his table. Here's what we know. The dead zones appear suddenly, always after strange lights are seen underwater. The zones start small but grow each day. I've seen 3 new dead zones near my village this week, said Yu, the young fisherman. And something else. The currents change before the lights appear. Just slightly, but enough to feel if you know how. One by one, they marked their observations on the map. A pattern emerged. The Nayari weren't working randomly. They were following underwater ridges and trenches, in a systematic path around the Korean peninsula. They'll be here next, Day said, pointing to a deep trench 30 miles offshore from his village. If their pattern holds, tomorrow or the next day. What can we do against alien ships? Asked one of the younger fishermen. We have only fishing. Boats. Dee looked at each face around his table. We have something more important. We have knowledge they think is worthless. We can see patterns they don't understand. And most importantly, we know the sea has moods and tempers that no machine can predict. On the Nayari vessel, Han had spent days observing and listening. Though confined to her room, she learned much from Sun's daily visits, and from watching, through her window. The Nayari extraction process used massive energy pulses to separate rare elements from the seabed. These pulses disrupted the delicate electrical fields that many sea creatures use to navigate, communicate, and hunt. Fish, whales, even tiny plankton, all died or fled the affected areas. Worse, the extraction created changes in water temperature and current that spread far beyond the immediate area. If continued, it would eventually disrupt the major ocean currents that regulated Earth's climate. During Sun's visit on the 4th day, Han asked a question that had been bothering her. Your people must have studied our oceans before coming here. Didn't you realize how these extractions would affect marine life? Sun set down the water container he had brought. We did study, but Earth's oceans behave unusually. The models we built based on other water worlds don't work well here. Director Tay says it's because Earth's oceans are young and unstable. Han almost laughed. Unstable? Our oceans have been here for billions of years. Yet they change constantly, unpredictably. The currents shift without clear cause. Storms form, with little warning. Even the creatures behave in ways our scientists cannot model. This gave Han an idea. Sun, has Director Tay told you why humans have managed to fish these unpredictable oceans for thousands of years? He says you stay near the edges, in the shallows, too afraid to truly enter the depths. That's not true. Humans have fished the deep oceans for centuries, not with technology like yours, but with knowledge passed down through generations. Knowledge that can't be put into your models. Sun's diamond-shaped eyes fixed on her with new interest. What kind of knowledge? The kind my father has, Han said quietly. The kind your people have dismissed as primitive and worthless. At that moment, a low alarm sounded through the ship. Sun's skin changed to a deep blue. What's happening? Han asked. Unusual pressure changes around the ship, Sun said, moving quickly to the door. And temperature fluctuations our sensors didn't predict. As the door closed behind him, Han smiled for the first time in days. She looked out her window at the dark water and whispered, Dad. Dawn broke with an unusual reddish glow, Day stood on his small boat, feeling the water with his hand. 23 boats floated nearby, each carrying fishermen who had answered his call. They spread out in a wide half circle, 30 miles from shore. "The weather will turn bad by afternoon," Day called to the others. "Can you feel it?" The other fishermen nodded. No weather report had predicted a storm today. The sky was mostly clear, but they all felt the signs. The way the waves rolled with extra energy beneath their boats, the strange stillness of the air, the pressure that made their ears pop slightly. "Are you sure this will work?" asked Yu, whose boat floated closest to Day's. "No," Day answered honestly. "But I know 3 things. First, the aliens will come to this trench today. Second, a storm is building that their machines haven't detected. And third, they don't understand our oceans." Day had explained his plan the night before. It was simple but dangerous. They would use their boats to herd schools of fish toward the underwater trench using old techniques, slapping the water in patterns, dragging special nets that didn't catch fish but guided them. The Nayari would follow the fish to extract the elements they wanted. Then, when the storm hit, the aliens would be trapped between the storm above and the trench below. By mid-morning, they spotted the first signs, a strange glow deep beneath the waves. The Nayari ships were arriving. "Begin," Dai called, and the fishermen started their work. Inside the Nayari vessel, alarms sounded again. Han pressed her face to the window, trying to see what was happening. Her room suddenly tilted. As the ship changed position, the door slid open and Sun rushed in. His skin had turned an anxious yellow color. "Something strange is happening," he said. "Fish are gathering above the trench in unusual patterns. Director Tay has ordered all extraction units to the area." "Why is that strange?" Han asked, trying to hide her excitement. "Fish school together all the time. Not like this. They're moving in organized patterns almost as if..." He stopped. "As if what?" "As if they're being directed." Sun's diamond eyes narrowed. "Your people have fishing vessels on the surface. Many of them, moving in formation." Han shrugged. "Fishermen go where the fish are. These are not modern fishing vessels. They're small primitive boats." Sun's voice had a new edge to it. "Like the kind your father uses." Before Han could answer, the ship shuddered violently. Sun steadied himself against the wall. "What was that?" Han asked. "Pressure change, very sudden." Sun's skin rippled with confusion. "Our sensors show no cause for it." Han smiled. "The sea has moods your sensors can't read." On the surface, the fishermen continued their work. The sky had darkened rapidly with heavy clouds rolling in from the east. The wind picked up and the waves grew taller. "It's coming faster than I expected," Day shouted to Yu over the rising wind. "Tell everyone to move to the outer positions." The fishing boats began to move in a practiced pattern, creating a wide circle around the area where the Nayari ships lurked below. Day knew the aliens were now focused on the unusual fish patterns, trying to understand why so many fish had gathered. They wouldn't notice the brewing storm until it was too late. Day felt a raindrop on his cheek. Then another. Within minutes, heavy rain lashed at his face and waves crashed against his boat. But Day wasn't afraid. This was his world. He had survived storms far worse than this. Below the surface, the Nayari had not. Director Tay's voice echoed through the Nayari vessel. "All units hold position. The element concentration here is the highest we've recorded on this planet." Han felt the ship shake violently again. Through her window, she could see other Nayari vessels moving into position around them. Their smooth oval shapes glowed faintly in the dark water. Sun pressed something on the wall and a large screen appeared. It showed the ocean's surface, now churning with massive waves under a black sky. "A storm," Sun said, surprised. "Our weather model showed clear conditions for the next 3 days. Earth weather can change quickly," Han replied, "especially at sea. Our ships are designed for deep ocean and space. Surface storms should not affect us at this depth." As if answering him, the ship lurched sideways, sending both of them against the wall. Warning lights flashed throughout the room. What's happening? Sun asked, his confident tone gone. The storm is affecting the underwater currents, Han explained. Strong surface storms create powerful underwater movements, things fishermen have known for thousands of years. Sun's skin turned a pale, sickly color. The extraction units are now caught in conflicting currents. 2 ships report damage to their navigation systems. Han moved closer to him. Sun, you need to stop the extraction now. When storms like this hit, they can create underwater landslides and trench areas. If your ships are too close when that happens, a deafening alarm cut her off. The screen on the wall showed one of the Nayari vessels tumbling sideways, pushed by an invisible force. The ocean floor below it was sliding, sending up clouds of sediment. Underwater landslide, Sun shouted into a communication device. All units surface immediately. Han grabbed his arm. No, the surface is worse. They need to move away from the trench, not up. But it was too late. The Nayari ships began rising toward the storm-tossed surface, exactly as Dai had predicted. From his boat, now pulled back to a safer distance, Day watched as the first alien ship broke the surface. It was smooth and oval, about the size of a small house. It rose on a massive wave, then crashed down into the trough, clearly struggling to stabilize itself in the wild water. More ships appeared, each one caught in the chaotic pattern of the storm. The Nayari had been masters of the deep, calm ocean, but they had no experience with the fury of Earth's surface storms. Day's phone rang, a government number. Mr. Kim? A stern voice asked. This is Admiral Park of the Korean Navy. We're tracking unusual objects surfacing near your position. Yes, Day said calmly. The Nayari ships are surfacing. They were caught in an underwater landslide caused by the storm. There was a pause. How did you know they would be there? I know the sea. And now, Admiral, you have a chance to stop them. Their ships cannot handle these storm conditions. They are vulnerable. After a moment of silence, the Admiral spoke again. Military vessels are already moving to your coordinates. But how did you know to call me specifically? Day smiled. My daughter Han told me months ago that you were the only high-ranking official who still consulted with traditional fishermen about ocean defense strategies. She said you were wise enough to value old knowledge. Inside the main Nayari vessel, chaos reigned. Systems failed as the ship was battered by waves it was never designed to withstand. Through her window, Han saw the dark shape of the director's command ship rolling helplessly in the storm. We need to evacuate, Sun said, his skin now a panicked white color. This vessel is not built for these conditions. Where's Director? Tae? Han asked. His ship surfaced first. We've lost contact. Han looked at the screen, which now showed military boats approaching from the distance. You're about to lose a lot more. The ship shuddered again, and the lights flickered. Han knew this was her chance. She pushed past Sun and ran through the open door. The ship's corridors were in disarray with Nayari crew rushing in all directions. No one tried to stop her. Han found an emergency pod, similar to a small submarine, with its door open. She climbed inside, sealed the hatch, and pressed what she hoped was the release button. With a hiss, the pod detached from the main ship and shot toward the surface. As it broke through the waves, Han saw the full scale of what her father had done. Dozens of Nayari ships floundered in the storm while military vessels surrounded them. And in the distance, small fishing boats watched it all unfold. Han smiled, through tears of pride. The aliens had never understood that Earth's greatest ocean experts didn't wear lab coats or use fancy computers. They wore weathered clothes and used their hands to feel the water's pulse. 3 days after the storm, people from all over Korea gathered in Seoul. On large screens set up in the city center, they watched as world leaders met with the Nayari to decide what would happen next. The storm had caused severe damage to 11 Nayari ships. 3 had been completely destroyed. Most importantly, the Nayari's main command vessel, with Director Tae on board, had been captured by the Korean Navy. For the first time since their arrival, the aliens were not in control. Han sat in the front row of the meeting hall, wearing her formal research uniform. Beside her sat her father, Dae, looking uncomfortable in a new suit. Why am I here? Day whispered to his daughter. I'm just a fisherman. Han squeezed his hand. Because you did what no one else could do. You showed them that understanding the sea isn't about technology, it's about wisdom. The doors opened and everyone stood as world leaders entered. Behind them came 5 Nayari, their skin colors subdued and tentacles moving slowly. Han recognized Sun among them. The last to enter was Director Tay, escorted by 2 human guards. The meeting began with formal statements from human leaders. They spoke of the Nayari's deception, the damage to Earth's oceans, and the need for a new agreement. The Nayari listened silently. When the humans finished, Director Tay stepped forward. The Nayari expedition made errors in our approach to Earth, he said, his voice lacking its usual confidence. We underestimated both your planet and its people. You did more than underestimate, said the Korean president. You lied about your intentions and damaged our oceans. Tay's skin darkened. We did not believe primitive vessels and outdated fishing methods would challenge our advanced technology. At this, the president smiled. Perhaps it's time you heard from the man who proved you wrong. He gestured to Day. Mr. Kim, would you please join us? Day looked surprised but stood and walked to the front of the room. Standing before the microphones, he suddenly seemed stronger, more confident. I have only fished these waters for 40 years. Day began simply. My father fished them for 50 years before me. His father for 60 years. We don't have fancy machines or computers. We have something better. We have the knowledge of generations who listen to the sea instead of trying to control it. The room was completely silent as Day continued. Your ships can travel between stars, but they couldn't feel a storm coming. Your sensors can measure tiny details, but they couldn't predict how the currents would change. You call us primitive, but we have survived on these waters for thousands of years. Day looked directly at Director Tay. The ocean is not just water to be used. It is a living thing with moods and patterns. It will share its gifts with those who respect it. It will destroy those who try to control it. When Day finished speaking, Sun stepped forward. His skin had turned a deep blue, a color Han had never seen before. The fisherman speaks truth, Sun said, surprising everyone. I have studied 53 ocean worlds across 12 star systems. None behave like Earth's. None have people who understand their waters as humans do. Director Tay hissed, softly, but Sun continued. Our scientists were wrong. Earth's oceans are not primitive or simple. They are complex in ways our technology cannot fully measure. And the humans who live with these oceans have knowledge our science does not. The negotiations lasted 3 days. In the end, a new agreement was reached. The Nayari would be allowed to collect small amounts of the rare elements they needed, but only in specific areas and using methods that would not harm marine life. In exchange, they would share certain technologies, particularly those that could help clean the damage already done to Earth's oceans. Most importantly, all Nayari operations would be supervised by a new international group called the Ocean Protection Council, and the leader of this council would be Day Kim. I don't know anything about international politics, Day protested when they told him. You don't need to, Han explained. The council will have scientists, diplomats, and military officers. But it needs someone who truly understands the oceans, someone the oceans themselves seem to listen to. 1 month later, Day stood on his fishing boat at dawn. The sea was calm, its surface glittering with morning light. In the distance he could see the special buoys that marked where a Nayari collection vessel was working, now using methods that caused no harm to the surrounding water. Han's boat pulled alongside his. Since the agreement, she had split her time between her research work and joining her father on the water. The fish are returning to the dead zones, she called to him. Faster than we expected, Day nodded. The sea heals itself when given the chance. The Nayari scientists are amazed. Their models said it would take years. Their models don't understand Earth. Day smiled and dipped his hand in the water. The Nayari are learning, though. Sun asked me to teach him how to fish yesterday. Bandi laughed. What did you tell him? I said fishing isn't about catching fish. It's about learning to be part of the sea instead of fighting against it. As they talked, an unusual shape rose from the water nearby. It was Sun, riding in a small vessel, designed to mimic an Earth fishing boat. "Good morning, teacher," Sun called to Day. His skin was a healthy blue-green now, and his tentacles moved gently in the breeze. "I have been practicing what you showed me." "And what have you caught?" Day asked. Sun held up empty hands. "Nothing. Yet. But I felt the current change just now, and I noticed the seabirds have changed their flight pattern." Dee nodded approvingly. "Then you've caught something more important than fish. You've caught understanding." Han watched as her father began explaining to Sun how to read the small waves near their boats. It was strange to see a human fisherman teaching an alien from another world the secrets of Earth's oceans. Later that day, news came that the first Nayari scientific outpost had opened in the deep Pacific. Unlike their previous hidden bases, this one welcomed human visitors and shared all its findings openly. The head scientist was Sun, who had requested to stay on Earth rather than return to his home world. His official title was Student of Earth's Waters, a position he had created himself. That evening, as Day and Han sorted their modest catch, Han asked a question that had been on her mind. "Do you think they'll try to take control again someday? The Nayari, I mean." Day looked out at the darkening ocean, thinking before he answered. "No," he said finally. "They are clever enough to learn the lesson Earth taught them. The sea belongs to no one, not to humans, not to aliens. We are all just visitors who must learn its ways." Han nodded, understanding the wisdom in her father's words. Far out on the horizon, where the last light of day met the water, a Nayari ship rose briefly to the surface. But unlike before, it rose gently, respecting the rhythm of the waves rather than fighting against them. Then it slipped back beneath the surface, leaving barely a ripple behind. The ocean had new guardians now, not conquerors, but students.